everyone, and thanks for joining. My name is Tracy Cook, and I'm the Online Media Manager for ModernAnalyst.com, the premier community for business analysts. I'd like to welcome you to today's webinar entitled Starting Over to Business Analysis and Beyond. This webinar will last approximately 60 minutes, including the question and answer session at the end. Please be sure to submit your questions in advance using the questions feature on the GoToWebinar software. I'd like to introduce today's featured speaker, Steve Blaze. Steve is a PMP, PMI, PBA, author, consultant, teacher, and coach who has over 55 years of experience in information technologies. Steve, welcome.
Thank you, Tracy, and welcome to everyone. Kind of an interesting topic to talk about something that people are talking about. It's going away. The business analyst is in demise. The sun is setting on the business analyst. We don't know what's going to happen here. We're all going to be out of jobs soon. Well, let's actually take a look at that and see why people would be talking that way. First of all, well, you know, when I finish a job as a consultant, I can walk away saying a job well done, and that feels good, and I go on to the next one. And in the big picture here of business analysis and businesses and business processes out there, the job basically is done. Now, traditionally, business analysts have been process-oriented. And they still are. We look at the processes, the business processes that are going on, and we automate those processes, we transform those processes, we improve those processes. Data is used just as a means of transmitting information from process to process. But we're process-oriented. Well, what happens when all of the processes have been automated? And all of the process, well, at least from an ROI point of view, they've all been automated. There's no more. There are processes out there. It just doesn't make any sense to automate them because it's not going to make any money from doing that. But all of the major ones, all your internal accounting and your external sales and so forth, they've all been automated. And now we're into process improvement, and most of the process improvement has been done. Now we're looking at very tiny, small, incremental improvements that may not make a whole lot of money. Basically, the job is done. Yay, the job is done, but that means that there may not be a need, or at least a diminishing need, for business analysts. Well, then there's this whole idea of data-driven technology nowadays. I'm for one, very much in favor of it. I love it. I started out back in the late 60s in data. Doing data modeling and data stuff and programming, and everything was about data for a while until it became more process oriented. But I love to see us return to data. But if you're not data oriented, you're not data driven, it becomes a world in which really, do we need business analysts? We got data scientists, we got data analysts, we got big data engineers. We got all those guys. Where does the business analyst fit in? In a data-driven world, how could you have people who are process-oriented? Especially when you're talking about things like digital transformation, artificial intelligence, machine learning. Where does the business analyst fit in all of that? Well, speaking of artificial intelligence, there is a concern, shall we say, certainly a lot of discussion going on about artificial intelligence taking over the business analyst job, along with everybody else's job. Now, some people say that nobody's going to work again. Artificial intelligence is going to do it all for us. Well, the question is that really true? Does this mean that the business analyst is going to be replaced by large language models? Models that are designed and created specifically for the purpose of business analysis? And if so, does that mean we're going to lose our current job as business analysts and have to start all over afresh? Well, not only that, but along with the artificial intelligence, machine learning, and all of that comes a whole slew of tools and techniques that allow customers and consumers to define their own needs, to define their own requirements, to generate their own models. to generate graphs and charts and reports. Click in a few things on a dashboard and get the information you need. We're moving more and more rapidly toward the idea of data democratization, where every person working in the organization has all the data they need to make decisions at their fingertips. The dashboard is just a simple example. Well, if that's the case, what do they need business analysts there to provide an analysis of the data and to do it for them? Hey, business analysts, I need a report that does this. No problem, I'll get it for you. Never mind, I'm doing it myself. If you're no longer needed by the business stakeholders to help them make sense of the business world and the massive amounts of data flowing through the organization, does that mean we have to start all over again? Oh yeah, and then there's agile software development. Anybody who has taken a look at agile, probably especially as a business analyst, has been met with the statement, there are no business analysts in agile. We don't use intermediaries. We put the solution guy, the programmer together, the developer with the business person with a problem, and they just talk directly to each other. Exchange a few user stories, a couple of comments, and bang, get some code. I'm being a little facetious here because I happen to be an agile guy. But that's the kind of myth that has been going out there. And if you're in an organization that is bringing agile in, or already has agile, you might have a certain fear for your very existence. There are no business analysts in agile. Does that mean I'm out? I'm going to have to start over? Well, let's take a look at what our options are. If any of these things happen, and these things might be true, and they might start moving away from business analysis, what are your options? Well, now, many of you out there, or some of you anyway, are tuning into this webinar because you see the thing says starting over to business analysts. So you say, oh, well, yeah, sounds like a good idea. I'd like to start over from my current career and start over as a business analyst. And now you're sitting there thinking, wait a minute, I'm going to start over as a business analyst and you're telling me there's not going to be any business analysis? Wait a minute. Well, I would be remiss if I did not mention that for the foreseeable future, at least the next 10 years or so, business analysts are going to be in demand throughout all industries and all geographic centers. What these business analysts are going to do, that's another question, and we'll talk about that in the next slide or two. This is not really a webinar of how to become a business analyst. It is a webinar on what you do if you want to move away from business analysis, or at least the current position you're in for whatever reason, because you're afraid that it's going to be lost, you're bored, whatever reason it might be. Now, for those of you who are coming in and saying, yeah, I like the idea of being in business analysis, I'm going to talk about all of the skills and abilities that business analysts have. And you can take a cue from that and say, if business analysts have those skills and abilities, those are the skills and abilities that I need in order to become a business analyst. And by George, I can be a business analyst and not worry about being stuck as a business analyst for the next 50 years, because look at all the possibilities, such as you might have tried for a new job, or you're a business analyst for 10 years experience, 15 years experience, and you see a job and says, we're looking for business analysts, and it's a 15, 20% increase in pay, better commute. You say, hey, that looks like an ideal job. I am a business analyst. You take your resume in, you talk to the people, and they say, yeah, but that's not what we do here. Our business analysts do this, and you say, well, that's not what I do. I've been a business analyst for 15 years. You may have seen some form of that. There are many different incarnations of business analysts. Sometimes companies have more than one. I've been in companies that have business analysts and technical business analysts, and then a person in the middle, all business analysts doing different jobs. And one could not possibly qualify to do the job of the other one. So there's one thing you can do. Take a look at what other types of business analysts are out there. And, if you're bored with your job, you've done it, for 15 years, you want to do something different, there's an option. Or you're working directly with the project teams for IT and they're moving to Agile. Well, there are other business analysts who are not working directly with IT. We'll take a look at that soon here. Well, you could also move out of business analysis and you say, yeah, okay, I move out of business, but I've accumulated a whole bunch of skills. I've got a lot of experience. I've got practices and techniques that I've used. Can I use those same things someplace else? Is there anywhere else I might go to that will do the same thing that I do, but not, the projects and the IT stuff and the, new software? Well, the answer is yes. That means there is a way that you can start over and leverage the skills and abilities that you have as a business analyst in doing something else, which means essentially you're not really starting over. Well, maybe you want to move ahead. You're more on the younger side and you're thinking, my best bet is to go someplace where there is more emphasis on the new technologies, artificial intelligence and machine learning and big data, Internet of Things, predictive analytics, and so forth. Am I going to be able to do that? What skills do I need? Or am I going to have to just throw away all the business analyst stuff and start completely over learning a whole bunch of new stuff in order to do that? If I'm young, yeah, early 20s, that's a good idea. But if you're up in 40s, 50s, 60s, you got 10, 15, 20 years of experience, that's an awfully hard thing to do. Well, maybe we might use our business analysis skills and knowledge to gain a position outside of business analysis completely. Like management. Because let's face it, to a degree, business analysis, just like project management, well, it's a limited upward mobility. Same thing with developers and technical. I found that out 40 years ago and said, where am I going to go as a programmer? I'm a senior systems analyst now. And there weren't too many upward mobility paths. You had to go into sales to go up in the management and so forth. So you're saying, well, I know I might be limited. Can I move into management with the skills that I have? Or do I have to start all over again with some other job to gain that kind of experience to get that upward mobility? Well, here's our business analyst. And if you've ever attended any of my previous webinars, you recognize, I don't know who she is, but might as well stay with the same person here. So she's thinking now what you might be thinking. Okay, what am I going to do next? So maybe there is something that I can do on the Agile teams. Well, maybe I can move laterally. I can join a data analyst group. But do I have skills to do that? Would that be like starting all over again? Wonder about upward mobility. What if there's a path from business analysis into upper level management? That would be really cool. Get a six-figure salary. They're bringing AI into the company. They've got a contract for ChatGPT and several others. Will that eliminate my job? And if it does, will there be any business analyst jobs left for me to go to? Bottom line, I have skills, I have abilities I've learned as a business analyst. If I have to leave the profession, what can I do? Do I have to start all over again? Is there anything that I am doing now that can be translated and leveraged to gain a new position? Perhaps one that pays more, maybe more amenable to my work-life balance. Well, let's see. First, let's take a look at those other business analysis positions. Now, the likelihood is that you are one of these, and you may not be aware that there are other business analysts who do nothing like what you do. First of all, and you can see there's the business, and the business generates business requirements that are translated into functional requirements that are given to the solution team to implement the solution. Where does the business analyst fit in? Well, how about over here? That's what I call the embedded business analyst. Back in the mid 90s or so, I helped Shell Oil with this orientation, where all of the business analysts moved out of IT and moved back into the business areas. So you had an accounts receivable business analyst, and you had a exploration business analyst, and so all of the different areas had business analysts assigned to them, and they worked full time in the business. And they, of course, were concerned that they were going to lose their identity as a business analyst, et cetera, and we were helping do that. Now, of course, about maybe 7-10 years later, they reabsorbed them and became back centralized, but this went on for quite a while. It was successful in some areas. So the idea of having a business analyst embedded with the business allows the business analyst to do other things than simply generate requirements. Help identify problems, help identify solutions without needing to go to IT or even go to a project. Come up with decide on new job specifications, which I did one time as a business analyst, wrote up new job descriptions for the company. After they put in the new systems, I wrote up the job descriptions, all on the business side. So there is one example. Now, more common business analyst is on the business side here, where your job is to identify problems or take the problems that have been identified by the business and write up business requirements. Oh, user stories, use cases, business requirements document. That's your job, to take the information, go ask questions, get information, have meetings, do focus groups, get the information and to solve the problem. This is what we need to do to solve the problem. And you may be somewhat familiar with that. Again, that's a job I have had. You may also be familiar, but probably not quite as familiar with this, that I call the overseer, just because I couldn't think of anything else to call it. Back in, about 10 years ago or so, actually, no, now I think about it, it was back in the 2006, 7, 8 timeframe. I was working for a company that had was building an automated mortgage platform, online mortgage platform, and they wanted the users and the business to generate use cases, right? The use cases themselves and the requirements. And then they had a group that was doing the requirements, but they wanted somebody to oversee it. That was me. So I marked up, I read all the requirements came through, the requirements documents and all of the use cases, marked them up and sent them back to make sure that they were in some fairly decent shape for the technical people to use. Now, this typical role typically reports to something like the project management office or a program management office, where the person, the business analyst is assigned to a project or a group of projects. And they work on those projects, assisting the requirements, moving the requirements from business requirements to technical requirements. Now, in the middle there, we have what I'm calling the centroid business analyst. That's a word I picked out of statistics. It involves cluster technology. But the idea here is this particular person's sole role, and sometimes it's called a business systems analyst or something of that nature. They take the business requirements, completed, signed off, edited, and so forth, business requirements, and turn them into functional requirements. Requirements that can be handed to the solution team, and the solution team can read the requirements and say, okay, now I know what to do. That may require some return to the business, talking to the stakeholders, or at least some discussion with the person who created the business requirements. to truly understand an ambiguous statement, for example. Then we move over to the solution side, and we have the solution side, or the system business analyst, all sorts of other different terms here. The technical business analyst, they don't work for a specific project team. They analyze the functional specifications. They provide information to the project team. They might go and talk to the business stakeholders, but they're primarily technical. And you would not have somebody come from the business side, whereas our A over here on the business side might be a super user, might not know the first thing about computers other than using the desktop. The E would have to be a technical person, a systems analyst, for example. And then the last one is the one most of you are familiar with because it's a job that most of you have. You are a team member. You work on the solution team itself. You work with the developers and with the project manager, and you are the technical representative to the business community or the business representative to the solution team. And you are more technical than you are business because you're working with the team. You're trying to make sure they work. The others will provide some kind of control to the team to say, hey, let's make sure we do what the business asks for. Now, if you're any one of these, you could be any one of the others and do so with very little starting over. Because basically, in essence, you're doing the same thing, going from the business with the problem, defining what needs to be done to solve the problem in business and then technical terms, and then solving the problem. Well, what about AI? Can AI really do the job, do you think? Well, possibly. Depends on what you consider your job to be. Certainly, very large language models can do the initial research for us, can generate the first draft of a set of requirements. I'm using the tools to do research for me on things. You know, the new book I'm writing, I'm doing some research that would say it saves me time. I don't have to do it all myself. They can pull information, but there's no way I'm going to just copy what the chat GPT says into the pages of the book. It's just research. It's there to work with and give me information. We still have to review it. We still have to add our own analysis, our own human insights, and what all the rest of the things a business analyst would have to do if we asked ChatGPT to generate requirements. Of course, if all you do is initial research and write some requirements, then the artificial intelligence may be a threat because that's what artificial intelligence can do. So let's see. For an example, here's a prompt that I wrote up for this webinar. Write a set of business requirements for a customer service dashboard. Now, what do you think ChatGPT said? Well, this is just a small portion, about 1/10 of what the ChatGPT gave me. A couple of 3 pages of requirements. And there's 3 here. I think there were 10 sections and then a summary. And it's pretty cool. It followed I don't know where they got the template for it, someplace on the net probably. But there it is. If you read it, that looks pretty good. In fact, I've worked with requirements that were developed, signed off, and translated, and the translation was signed off by the systems analyst, and the system was built. And the requirements were not better than this. In fact, they were worse. Of course, we were all working together so we could iron out all the difficulties and get the system going. Now you look at that and you say, well, that's pretty cool and that's pretty frightening. I don't know that I could write requirements like that. But here's the problem. There isn't a single statement on that page and in the whole thing, I can assure you that the rest of it is no better, that is not ambiguous. The dashboard will support multiple user roles. What does that mean? The administrators will have full control. What does full control mean? How can I write code that will make it full control? But it's requirements. It's certainly something that will get us started, but I don't think it's enough to replace the business analyst, at least not yet. Well, let's say instead of letting AI replace us, Why don't we join it? Right? Don't fight, join. So what could we do to harness AI, to become part of it? Well, first of all, you need to define the requirements. Business analysts currently are realizing that it doesn't matter that it's AI and AI can do a lot of that stuff. We still need to define the data. We need to determine how the data is going to be structured. We need to know what are the questions to ask and so forth. There are a couple of, speaking of which, there are a couple of jobs out there that are paying a decent amount of money. For example, a prompt engineer. Boy, does that sound funny. If you've been playing around with ChatGPT or any of the others, you're asking questions to see what happens. Maybe you ask it to regenerate and compare the results, and then you have designed and used prompts. You are a prompt engineer. Not that's prompt in terms of I'm a fast engineer, I always show up on time. It's a prompt engineer, one who engineers prompts that are used by AI to generate the questions. Not AI in general, but large language models. This is what a prompt engineer does, reformats or restates the questions so that the tool can give you the right answers. And just like we might translate or reformat information that we get from business stakeholder into specific requirements that the solution team will understand and be able to implement, that's exactly what we're doing as a prompt engineer. Most of you have the experience and the skills to be translating the information into prompts for AI. So you don't have to start over again in a new career if you decide to be a prompt engineer and work in AI. Another example is a business intelligence analyst. Now, the prompt engineer comes first. They generate the questions that gets the information. The business intelligence analyst is on the other side. They're going to validate the information. They're going to make sure that it is complete, it is accurate, it lacks no holes. They're going to look at the data visualization, the reporting, the CRM, the data quality, make sure they are all complete, they're all accurate. Much of the work that you would do as a business intelligence analyst, these are both new and to the field, is stuff that you've already done as a business analyst, with the sole exception of creating visualizations. Oh yes, agile. Well, it kind of says it there. Generally, at least in principle, there are two people involved, the person with the problem and the person with the solution. So the fellow to the left corner there, that's our developer, and the lady up in the upper right-hand corner, she's the person with the problem. And traditionally, we're going to put that business analyst. There's the guy there who's going over, asking questions, getting information to generate the requirements for the developer there. And so in Agile, we're going to look like this, where just the two of them talk directly to each other. No business analyst. Well, first of all, I'm not going to get into why that's really more of a myth than the truth. Let's instead talk about what you can do if that happens. Does that mean you have to get out and start over again someplace else, or go to someplace that's not agile, change jobs or careers? Well, maybe you can jump in on the agile bandwagon. So what are your options? Well, you could be a Scrum Master. Now, if you're more comfortable with the soft skills, facilitation, communication, applying influence, negotiation, mediation, problem solving, then the role of Scrum Master would be a fairly easy transition for you. You'll be giving up your assignment with the business. You won't be going over to the business that much. You'll be focusing almost completely on the team. But the skills that you had in order to work with the business will make you a successful Scrum Master. It won't be like completely starting over. You could also be a product owner. If you're more aligned with the product, you really like that product, you like getting into it, you aren't afraid to take authority, then the product owner might be where you want to go. Now, the product owner doesn't have authority over the team, but over the product that's being developed. Gathering information from the customers that the product owner represents, putting it on the product backlog, fully in charge of the prioritization of that product backlog. So if that's more along the lines of what you feel you are best at, your predilections tell you, then you might want to go to a product owner. The third one is the one that really might be closest to starting over. Unless you're a business analyst who came from the technical side, like myself. I started as a programmer. I was 20 years in programming and systems development and writing code for operating systems and server utilities and all sorts of stuff. I mean, really deep tech. And I came into a business. So I might say, yeah, time to go back to doing that stuff. Time to be a developer again. Join the team. And on the team, you have business analysts and developers and testers and so forth. But ultimately, they're all developers. So if you do decide to join the team, the development team, and join there, you will lose the title of business analyst. You will become a developer. And that might be just exactly, but it won't necessarily be starting over because you will probably start doing business analysis things on the team. You'll write the user stories or review the user stories or analyze the user stories and so forth. Now, there are a couple of other Agile options that don't really come up too often because the Agile people, well, first of all, they are assistant and many companies have brought them in, but they're not really part of the Agilists venue. So there's your business community, there's your product owner and your product backlog, and there's your Agile team with a Scrum Master and so forth. So there's another role here over on the business side, working with or for the product owner, because the business community may be large that the product owner is representing. So we have one or more business analysts who are getting the information from the business community, writing it up, modifying it, analyzing it, and then sitting down with the product owner. Now, the product owner will decide what goes onto the product backlog and how it's stated on the product backlog, but the information comes from the business analyst. You could also be on the other side of the product backlog. In this case, what you're doing is taking the information off the product backlog, and during sprint planning sessions or sprint review meetings, you're representing the business community, the customers, who may not want to appear in one of these meetings. In fact, you may even represent the product owner at times when the product owner is not available. You conduct the communications with the Agile development team. You evaluate the product backlog items. You answer questions, and questions you can't answer, you go get the information. And that's another role of business, not on the team. You wouldn't be a developer. You're off the team, and in that role, you're probably serving multiple teams with multiple product backlogs. One more option, still in a community that does Agile, if your enterprise is doing Agile, is this kind of enterprise or strategic business analyst. You're going to learn the problem domain and empathize with the people in the problem domain and pull insights out of the problem domain from the whole enterprise, working with the upper level management and so forth. You're going to send those insights down as problems to the product owner. And possibly even, here are some things you might want to put on the backlog. And every once in a while, you might even sit down with the solution team and offer some solutions. 3 other Agile options in many companies, and more are adopting these business analyst roles that you can look to getting into. Well, what about data? You mentioned new technology and so forth. What are we going to do there? Well, this is not necessarily going to be starting over, as you'll see, but it's not just a roll out of bed into another role here. There is a mindset change that you have to undergo. You have to eliminate or reduce the process orientation that you have as a traditional business analyst. You have to start thinking in terms of data and data only. What data is necessary? What has to be done to that data? How do I know what is the provenance of that data? How do I know the data is clean? What do I have to do to make the data clean? What do I have to do to make the data consistent? Everything, since everything is data driven, the decisions we make, the graphs we look at, the charts we look at, they're all based on data. That data better be right. So our mindset now becomes, how do I get the data right? Where do I get the data to solve the problems? And how do I make sure it's right? But truly, the actual actions you're taking, the activities you're doing are not that far from removed from what you're doing as a business analyst. For example, in analytics, predictive analytics, descriptive analytics, diagnostic analytics, prescriptive analytics, biometric analytics, can't even remember the words, all of these analytics and more coming, they all require problems in order to come up with answers, solutions. They need questions. And that's what a business analyst does. We define problems. We define questions. We translate business requests into data directives. We decide, we make a determination of what data might be needed to solve this problem, just as we might have before decided what requirements are needed to solve the problem. So it's not that far. We're not truly starting over. Once we change our mindset, how about the terms that a lot of business analysts have been saying, what about this data analyst and data scientist? They're going to take over my career. Well, the data analyst is going to evaluate business requests to create statistical models to satisfy those requests. Well, the data analyst evaluates the business requests, the data scientist creates the statistical models. Together, they do that. They collect, organize, study data to provide business insights. Well, if you take away data and just say business, that's what a business analyst does. So again, activity-wise, responsibility-wise, task-wise, you're doing the same thing. Now, a data scientist would require you to become proficient in R, that's a coding language, or Python, or several other tools. But as a business analyst, you probably already familiarized yourself and become proficient in a whole bunch of tools. So learning is not a problem. Well, how about AI and machine learning? Well, as we talked about, we're going to apply those tools and techniques, translate solutions into language the business understands. Whereas with data mining, for example, the business analyst would come in and evaluate what's going on evaluate whether the model is actually working. With machine learning, we have to create the model to evaluate itself. Those require requirements. They're just not process requirements. Well, what else can we do? Can we move away from business analysis without actually starting over? Well, yeah. How about moving into the business itself? How about becoming an SME? Many companies are now creating SMEs, people who are experts in accounts payable, people who are experts. And who better to bring to that than the person who wrote the systems, the person who defined it, who asked the questions, who understands the business? Or perhaps not as an SME, because companies don't have staff positions for SMEs. How about a line position? How about a senior manager? Who better to be a senior manager of accounts payable than somebody who has identified all the problems in accounts payable and solved them for the past 10 years? Now, here's an idea. Many forward-looking companies are starting to move business analysts into their R&D efforts, working out of product management or product development, or just pure R&D. These forward-thinking companies are putting business analysts in to represent live customers, to look at things from a different perspective, to go out and ask questions, to do design, to lead design thinking, to do focus groups, to observe the community, and then bring it back to build new products. Now, it sounds like it's, you know, a bit of a distance from traditional business analyst work, but it's basically the same thing. But here's the thing. The one big difference is no project deadlines. You don't have to worry about hitting a deadline every 2 months or so. Truly in R&D, when somebody says, when is it going to be done? The answer is when it's done. And then if you're like me, you know, you're at an age where you've already put in 50 years and perhaps you know, moving on to something else is a good idea. Maybe you might just retire, right? So if you're going to go out of business analyst, what do you need? What is upper management looking for? What are the executives looking for? First and foremost, the number one skill that everybody's looking for, it seems like, at least according to the Christmas and Company and all those employment agencies who go out and get executives, and according to the Office of Personnel Management for the US federal government, the number one required skill for executives in the federal government is problem-solving skills. Gathering the appropriate information, analyzing that information to make sure we have the real problem, analyzing the problem itself, produce multiple solutions, skills to do that. That's what we need in the upper level management. The second, from the same people, is data-driven decision making. That isn't saying that this person always makes the right decision. That is that this person always makes a good decision. That is, it is based on information that has been gathered. It is made with the appropriate amount of time, not right away as a knee-jerk reaction and not too long that the decision stale dates. The information is understood, the decision, we understand that the decision has consequences, negative consequences, and we are willing to accept that. Once the decision is made, then we can go about making the decision right. The third is critical thinking. Now you say, well, you know, how does that fit in? This is also a highly requested skill at the management and executive levels. This is making sure that we look at things from a logical and rational perspective, less emotions, so that we are reducing assumptions. We're not making our own assumptions and we're catching assumptions other people are made. We're reasonably combating the cognitive biases that exist within all of us, such as the confirmation bias, the fundamental attribution error, the association heuristic, recency bias, groupthink. We use critical thinking to offset all of those. For a large degree, much of these we are already doing as business analysts. The other two of the top five are communication and big picture thinking, right out of the business analyst playbook. So what do we have to offer? There's our resume. We perform pivotal roles in bridging the gap between business and IT. We help collaborate with stakeholders. So basically, we are becoming experts or are experts in communication. We influence and assist stakeholders, so we're experts in collaboration. We understand the business domain and the processes, and we translate these business processes into solutions and then technical requirements, which means that we have both the business and technical knowledge. We apply out-of-box solutions to solve business problems. We have creative and critical thinking. We provide information and other decision support assistance. Any assistance we provide to help other people get the goals is facilitation. Add it all together and it spells problem solving. In other words, all of that is what a business analyst already does. So that means that it's not a big jump to become a strategic business analyst, providing management decision support. And I have done this, no requirements, nothing, just assisting in decision support, gathering and analyzing business information. Again, no requirements. So if the agile comes in, they don't want you around to do requirements, look where you can go. Not only that, but you can go to product or program management. The beauty of this is that you're not focused on the people, you're not focused on the process, you're focused on the product. You even have benefits realization. You don't care what happens at the end of the product as long as there's some benefit that's gotten out of the product that we developed. The project is over, the benefits will accrue much later. We're involved with making sure those benefits are there. That's a great business analyst job, working directly in management. How about upper level management? The ability to solve problems, all the things we talked about. Every one of you out there as a business analyst is a prime candidate for upper level management. Congratulations. Oh yes, and then there's the executive suite. Here's the thing. Very few people, very few roles, very few positions in the entire enterprise have the knowledge, the breadth of knowledge of both IT, technical stuff, and business stuff. Especially if you've been a business analyst for a number of years, you usually go from one area of the business to another, and you get to know a lot about the business and a lot about technology, exposed to AI, exposed to big data, exposed to the Internet of Things. With that kind of experience and knowledge, that's the kind of person that the people looking for CEOs are looking for. A prime candidate. Every one of you is a future CEO because you are a business analyst. So here's our traditional business analyst skills: facilitation, communication, analytical skills, decision support, problem-solving abilities, knowledge of the business, technological acumen, information gather. Those are all the skills that we have naturally as business analysts in order to do our job correctly. And what are we going to do with those? Go to the CEO, upper level management, data analyst, just about anywhere in business we can be successful, because ultimately we're not starting over, we're simply moving ahead. Now I'll turn it back to Tracy for questions.
Thank you, Steve. Thanks again for another great session. We do have some questions, and as a reminder, if you have questions, please feel free just to type them into the questions box. We have about 12 minutes or so for questions. Steve, our first question: Are there organizations which have teams of business analysts, and would managing other business analysts be a career opportunity?
Yes and yes. In fact, back 25 years ago, I helped a company in Sacramento, California, create an independent business analyst group. They were consultants, and we took half of the team. They had decided they wanted 20 people on the team, and half of the team we came from IT, and the other half from business. We expected to have applications mostly from the business side. We actually got more from the IT side. So we chose our 20 and 20. I set up the whole process and how it was going to work. We had a manager of business analysts who actually sat with the board. So he was a kind of a board level, but he didn't have any vote or anything. But he was there to get initial information and provide information that business analysts were doing. So there's a whole team, 20 business analysts. And they would go in teams of 2 and 3 and so forth. We also took over the help desk. So the help desk became like junior business analysts. And at one point, we were cycling every business analyst through the help desk for I guess about a week, so that they would talk to users and so forth. So this is and it's done. I've been talked to many groups of business analysts in all sorts of configurations. Now, as far as business analyst management, yes. Here's the good part is there's probably nobody better than somebody who has managed the business analyst. Although a senior business analyst who has a wide range of experience working in various areas of the company would probably be a better candidate for a higher position. But a business analyst manager then has the management But remember that a lot of the executive management is not managing people, they're staff. So they're managing programs. Managing people is a different thing entirely. The downside of being a business analyst manager is twofold. You have a management group of, say, 7 people, and you're successful, however they judge success, and you'll tend to be pigeonholed. That's all you can do. Where do you go from there? The other negative is if you're doing a really good job and things are going well, the organization would rather give you more money than promote you out of that position because they don't know that the next person is going to be able to do as good a job. It's the old thing, if you do a job well, you'll keep that job. So good news and bad. Both the answer to the question shortly is yes and yes. Yes, there are teams of business analysts, and yes, business analyst managers is a proper step up the line.
Thanks, Steve. The next one is coming in more as a comment here, and it says that there are many organizations that have business analysts on the Scrum teams. Also, that it's an option for the BA in agile environments. At the program or level, organizations have analysts to define the solution at the high level Scrum before Scrum teams.
Yes, that was one of the roles that I showed on there that you can go to. You're not on the Scrum team, but you're defining things. As for the business analyst on the Scrum team, I did not show that because you're essentially not going to change. And yes, there are. And I remember back in 2011 in Phoenix, where after 10 years of my fighting with people, that business analysts have a role, and et cetera, and being told, no, they should just take all the business analysts out and shoot them. At the Agile conference in Phoenix, there were 11 or 13 sessions on how to include a business analyst in your Agile team and why it's a good idea. So things have changed in the intervening 10 years. The business analyst has become a member of pretty much a lot of Scrum teams. But the reason I didn't mention that is because if you're a business analyst now, you might be a business analyst on the Scrum team. So it's no change. You're not starting.
I got it. Excellent. Thanks, Steve. The next question here, I'm not maybe you'll be able to answer this. Any suggestions for getting an understanding of a new company culture and domain or techniques?
I had a previous life in security and got to know how to hack and so forth as a result, as part of that. And one of the things we do is called footprinting. And it's to get to know the company and see if we can find weaknesses in the company, people we might want to exploit using social engineering and so forth. Now, I'm not saying go out and be a black hat hacker, but the footprinting idea is that I'm going to get on Google and search on the company name. I'm going to see what Twitter has to say, what people are talking about in Twitter, Facebook, other social media. Most companies have blogs. So go to the blogs and read up. Start with the products the company does. Start with the corporate website. Read it all. Sometimes on the corporate websites, many times they have places where you can submit questions, queries to I don't know who answers them, but you can get information about the company. So you can read through the corporate website and find some information. And if you have any questions, you might be able to get answers right away. Now on Google, you can find Google groups and so forth that are public, and you might find people from that company who are talking about the company. Talk with them about it. That will give you a lot of information about the company. So whereas in the past, when I joined a company, I started learning about the company after I joined. Then I could talk to all those people. Now you have the opportunity through the web and the internet of finding out a lot of information before you ever even get close to it.
That's a great idea, Steve. Thank you. Our next question, how about the independent consultant career or working in a big consulting company? Is that an option?
Absolutely. I'm doing it. I've been doing it since 1998. So, I don't let that be a recommendation, because you might say, wait a minute, when I get to be in my late 70s, I don't want to be still doing this stuff. I'm doing it because I love it. And I did not bring up independent consulting as a start over, because you're not really starting over. You have now to be worried about marketing and finance and tax forms, and there's a lot of things you have to worry about you didn't worry about when you were just a business analyst. But when it comes down to achieving the assignment, you're doing the same thing. So there's no starting over. So I didn't bring that up because you're still a business analyst or senior business analyst or whatever you happen to be, because that's what you're going to sell first. Now, I've been fortunate that I've been able to, in my consulting career, get new jobs that were somewhat outside what I had, what I would say I would go and do. Hey, Steve, listen, we're doing this. What do you think? Well, how about this and this? Okay, let's try it. And I'm out doing something brand new. I've gotten into several technology areas as a result. But basically, as a consultant, when you're comfortable as a business analyst, then you can say, I can do a business analyst job for anybody. I'm here, hire me, bring me on. I like it because it's short term, 2 or 3 years, you get deeply into it, and then you get to do something else. Short attention span.
Thanks, Steve. I think we have time maybe for one, maybe two more questions. We'll see. Next question, how valuable is domain specialization for a business analyst? For example, healthcare or banking, etc.?
Your call. It's very valuable if you really like it. You really like healthcare, it resonates with you, you feel like you're doing things for people, you're helping save lives or something. Then your domain experience is invaluable. Nothing can top it. You're going to sell that first. I've been in healthcare for umpteen number of years. On the other hand, it will tend to pigeonhole you, because if the jobs are out there in something else like finance, they'll say, no, you're a healthcare business analyst. We need a finance business analyst. I'm fortunate in that I've been in a wide range of fields, mostly financial, but in a wide range. I've had healthcare, I've had security, I've got government and so forth, that I'm not restricted, but then I'm a consultant. If I were going out for a job, I would have a wider range of jobs that I could go for than if I'd only focused on one area. So that's your choice as to whether you feel one is more valuable than the other.
Excellent, Steve. Let's get one more question in. We only have a couple of minutes. And for this one, what is your advice for a business analyst with 7+ years of experience and they want to move into management? Thanks.
It's a hard sell to try to push yourself there. I've gotten into management through project management. I've gotten into management actually as a consultant. I was asked to manage projects and provide management, mostly in interim until they were able to hire somebody. And usually they would say, "Are you sure you don't want to stay here and work?" And my response is no. It's a hard sell to convince somebody that you do have the experience when your title is business analyst. With 7 years, what I would do is look for program management areas to work as a more senior business analyst at a program management level, as opposed to project management. I would try to get out of the project management, look for jobs that are not project management oriented. I'm not working for a project manager, I'm not working with a project team. I'm working outside for the whole organization or for a wider organization, like the program organization. That way, I'm getting exposed not only to more enterprise level work, but also to more higher level people. It's who you know that's important. That would be a first step in that direction. And certainly I would curry favor. I hate to use that term because it sounds insincere, manipulative, but talk to the people who are managers, make suggestions, offer free advice, do research for them. Keep in contact with the managers of the company. That will help you be pulled up when an opening comes up. Here's a guy who knows what he's talking about. He's proved it to me. So those are two things I think that would help. One is more of a social type of thing. The other is a job-based upward mobility move.
Excellent, Steve. Thank you again. It looks like we are out of time. But again, Steve, thanks again for such a great session. We also would like to thank everyone for attending today's Modern Analyst webinar, and a reminder that today's webinar has been recorded, and it, along with the slides, is going to be posted at the ModernAnalyst.com website within 2 business days. This concludes the event, and we hope everyone has a great day. And again, Steve, thanks so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You're welcome.